What if I told you that one of rock's greatest bands exchanged murderous threats mid-song during their final concert? That a song about pushing limits literally broke the singer who performed it? That perfectionism paralyzed their creativity? 4 ambitious outsiders chased the California dream and caught it, only to have it destroy their friendship. They said they reunite when hell freezes over. Then, 14 years later, it did. Stick around, this is what really happened to the Eagles. Picture Southern California in the early 1970s, Laurel Canyon, the place where music and dreams collided with sunshine and possibility. It's where 4 ambitious outsiders, Glenn Frey from Michigan, Don Henley from Texas, Randy Meisner from Nebraska, and Bernie Leadon from Minnesota, converged on a vision that would define an entire generation. These weren't California natives. They were hungry kids who came to chase the California dream, the one that promised freedom, fortune, and immortality. And they found each other in the most unlikely way, as hired guns, session musicians, backup players for Linda Ronstadt during her 1971 Silk Purse tour. That apprenticeship was crucial. It gave them something rare in rock and roll: professional polish and genuine chemistry, forged through shared work, not just shared ambition. They learned how to blend rock energy with country honesty, how to craft harmonies that felt effortless, and how to make music that sounded like freedom itself. Before we continue, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. By 1971, the Eagles were officially a band. A year later, their self-titled debut album hit the shelves. It wasn't a commercial explosion. It peaked at number 22 on the Billboard charts. But it didn't need to be. The album introduced 3 songs that would become the soundtrack of a generation's youth. Take It Easy, which climbed to number 12, Witchy Woman, a mysterious hypnotic number that reached number 9, and Peaceful Easy Feeling, which captured the laid-back California vibe that defined the era. For millions of listeners, these songs became the soundtrack of early 70s optimism, the sound of possibility itself.
I like the way you're sparkling.
Here's the thing about the Eagles at this moment. They were artists first. They cared about the music, about the craft, about blending country and rock in ways nobody else was doing. They were democratic. They shared songwriting credits. They rotated vocals. No ego, no hierarchy. Just 4 guys from the Midwest and Great Plains trying to make the most honest music they could. But ambition was already whispering in their ears. These weren't California bohemians content to play small venues and live cheap. They wanted the biggest prize. They wanted to be the biggest band in the world. And that hunger, that relentless, burning hunger, would change everything. Their follow-up album, Desperado, arrived in 1973. It was a quasi-concept record, comparing contemporary rock stars to Old West outlaws. Thematically ambitious, musically sophisticated. Songs like Tequila Sunrise and the title track, Desperado, showed real artistic depth. But it was a commercial disappointment. It peaked at number 41. Neither single cracked the top 40. This was the wake-up call. Frey and Henley looked at each other and realized something crucial. Pure country rock, no matter how well crafted, had a commercial ceiling. If they wanted to reach the stratosphere, they needed to evolve. They needed to get harder. They needed to chase the arena rock sound that was dominating FM radio. For On the Border in 1974, they made decisive moves. New producer Bill Zimzik replacing Glenn Johns. New guitarist Don Felder brought in to inject what was described as a slightly harder-edged sound. This wasn't a subtle shift. This was a strategic pivot toward mainstream rock dominance.
You get the best of my love.
And it worked. Instantly, Best of My Love became their first number 1 single. The album climbed to number 17. Suddenly, the Eagles weren't just a band anymore. They were players in the upper echelon of touring groups, exactly where Frey and Henley had always planned to be. A year later, one of these nights dropped. The album itself hit number 1. The title track became another number 1 single. They'd cracked the code. They'd figured out how to make country rock that the entire world wanted to hear. But there was a price. Bernie Leadon, the founding member whose bluegrass roots and folk sensibilities had defined their early sound, was watching his band transform into something he no longer recognized. The Democratic, country-influenced Eagles he'd helped build were being systematically dismantled in pursuit of commercial dominance. The tension boiled over after the One of These Nights tour in 1975. The exact nature of their final argument remains one of rock's enduring mysteries. But what emerged from it was this. Backstage, during what witnesses describe as a heated confrontation, Leadon poured a beer over Glenn Frey's head. It's become the iconic image of his departure, the moment Bernie quit the band. His leaving marked something definitive, the end of the Democratic Eagles and the triumph of the Frey-Henley machine. Joe Walsh, a legendary guitarist and rock icon in his own right, stepped in as Leadon's replacement. The band that emerged was harder, more polished, more ambitious, and it would go on to become the biggest band in the world. But something had been sacrificed. The original vision, the country rock purity, the sense that these four friends were simply trying to make honest music. All of it was gone. What replaced it was something more powerful commercially, but something that would ultimately eat the band alive from the inside. By 1976, the Eagles had achieved what most musicians can only dream of. They were massive, they were rich, they were everywhere. Every FM radio station, every concert venue, every living room in America seemed to have their music playing. And that's when everything changed. The recording sessions for Hotel California became legendary for all the wrong reasons. Frey and Henley, now functioning as uncompromising studio generals, pursued a standard of perfection that bordered on obsession. This wasn't collaboration anymore. This was war. A war fought with tape machines and retakes and the kind of minute perfectionism that can drive men insane. Glenn Frey himself quantified the psychological toll. He said it bluntly, "We'd gone from a band that could make an album in 3 weeks to a band that couldn't finish one in 3 years." Think about that for a moment. 3 weeks to 3 years, the same musicians, the same songs. But the pressure of massive success had completely paralyzed their creative process. Endless takes, vocals erased and re-recorded, instruments layered and torn apart and reconstructed. The pursuit of perfection that may have been mathematically impossible. And through it all, the financial stakes kept climbing. Every day in the studio cost thousands. Every decision felt like it could make or break the album that would define their career. Don Felder, the guitarist who'd helped create the iconic Hotel California, the song that would win the Grammy Award for Record of the Year in 1978, found himself caught in the crossfire. There are stories, unconfirmed but persistent in rock lore, that his vocal contributions were erased, that his ideas were systematically dismissed, that he was being squeezed out of creative decisions on a song he'd co-written. The tension between Felder and the Frey-Henley axis deepened with every passing week. It wasn't just musical disagreement. It was about control. It was about who got to decide what the band sounded like. It was about ego and power, and the kind of resentment that builds silently day after day, until it becomes something explosive. But the real breaking point came from a different direction. Randy Meisner was the quiet one, the high-tenor voice behind Take It to the Limit, a sensitive soul who'd never been comfortable with the aggressive, perfectionist studio environment that Frey and Henley had created. He was the vocalist who had to hit those notoriously difficult high notes night after night on tour, a physical and vocal demand that few singers could sustain. By the summer of 1977, Meisner was completely wrecked, physically sick, emotionally drained. Exhausted from the relentless touring schedule that followed Hotel California's release, the album had been a massive success, which meant months of shows, night after night, the same songs, the same demands, the same pressure. In Knoxville, Tennessee, something snapped. During the encore, when the band started into Take It to the Limit, Meisner refused to sing it. He'd hit his wall. His voice was shot. His body was shot. He couldn't do it anymore. Glenn Frey saw it as insubordination. What happened next has become one of rock's most infamous backstage incidents. The two men fought, physically. There was yelling, accusations, rage. Meisner punched Fry, and then he walked away from one of the most successful bands in history, never to return as a permanent member. The irony is almost too perfect to be true. The song about pushing past your limits, about refusing to accept boundaries, became the literal instrument of Randy Meisner's professional collapse. The very thing the lyrics celebrated became the thing that destroyed him. He couldn't take it to the limit anymore. His personal limit had been reached, and the only way to survive was to walk away. Timothy Schmidt stepped in as Meisner's replacement. The damage, however, was permanent. The Eagles released The Long Run in 1979. It was another commercial success, another #1 album. But listen to the title, and you understand what was happening. This was the long run toward burnout, toward breakdown, toward the edge of something terrible. The final touring lineup consisted of Fry, Henley, Joe Walsh, Don Felder, and Timothy Schmidt. 4 of them were locked in various states of resentment and animosity. The only unity that remained was the professional obligation to tour and make money. The friendship that had started in Laurel Canyon was completely gone, replaced by a kind of corporate machinery. Show up, perform, collect the check, move to the next city. And then came July 31st, 1980, Long Beach, California. What would become known in rock history as the Long Night at Wrong Beach. Before the final show, there was a backstage moment with California Senator Alan Cranston and his wife thanking the band for performing a re-election benefit. It was a nothing moment, really, a political courtesy. But Don Felder made an insulting comment to the senator's wife. A small thing, meaningless really. But for Glenn Fry, it was the breaking point. It was the straw that had finally definitively broken the camel's back. Years of resentment, perfectionism, control, and mutual contempt boiled up into pure rage. On stage, mid-set, something happened that would forever define the end of the Eagles. Don Felder looked back at Glenn Fry and said the words that would echo through rock history. "Only 3 more songs till I kick your ass, pal." Fry, filled with equal fury, shot back, "Great, I can't wait." And then they had to sing Best of My Love together.
I'll give you the best of my love.
The 2 men standing side by side under the stage lights, harmonizing on one of their most iconic songs, while simultaneously, genuinely thinking about killing each other. Fry himself confirmed it. "As soon as this is over, I'm gonna kill you."
Fucking kill you. I can't wait. Can't wait.
The performance ended with Felder storming off stage during the encore and smashing his guitar into pieces. It wasn't a dramatic artistic statement. It was a passionate display of rock and roll rebellion. It was pure, unfiltered ego. It was what happens when success corrupts the very soul of people who achieved it. It was the final proof that money, fame, and perfectionism had completely hollowed out whatever human connection had once existed between these 4 men. The lawsuits came quickly. The band was finished. When asked about the possibility of reunion, Don Henley gave the most memorable quote in rock history. The Eagles would play together again, only when hell freezes over. It seemed definitive. It seemed final. The Eagles, one of the greatest bands in rock history, were done. Over, a casualty of their own ambition and success. For the next 14 years, the music world accepted that prophecy. The Eagles were a legend, preserved in vinyl and bitterness. In 1994, something unexpected happened. A country musician named Travis Tritt recorded a version of Take It Easy. For the music video, he asked if any of the original Eagles members would participate. It was a small thing, a cameo, a chance to work together for a few hours without the weight of being the Eagles. Something shifted in that moment, something thawed. The members realized they could be in the same room, could make music together, without the weight of the past crushing them. The reunion tour was announced with brilliant, self-aware humor. They called the live album Hell Freezes Over. By openly referencing Henley's famous quote, by turning their bitterness into the title of their comeback, they neutralized the past. They reclaimed their story. They transformed a notorious breakup into an integral part of their own mythology. The live album debuted at #1 on the Billboard 200. The world wanted this reunion desperately. People who'd grown up with these songs in the 1970s, who'd driven down California highways with these melodies playing, wanted to hear them live. They wanted to remember what it felt like to be young. The reunion included a new song, Get Over It, written by Henley. The lyrics expressed his frustration with people constantly assigning blame and looking for scapegoats. The message was clear. The past was the past. It was time to move forward, time to acknowledge the wreckage, but to refuse to be defined by it. For nearly 2 decades, the Eagles toured. They became an institution. They became the kind of band that parents took their kids to see. A legacy act, but one that proved the timeless power of great songs. And then, in January 2016, Glenn Frey died. He was 67 years old. His health had been declining for years. Chronic digestive issues, autoimmune diseases, that accumulated toll of a lifetime of excess and stress. But his death still shocked the world. The man who'd started it all, who'd pushed hardest, who'd driven the perfectionism, he was really gone. Many assumed that would be the end. Without Frey, without the man who'd forged these songs, how could the Eagles continue? But Don Henley made a decision based on a powerful conviction. The songs have a life beyond any one person. The music was bigger than any individual. The connection between these songs and the millions of people who'd grown up with them transcended any one person's mortality. In 2017, Henley made an emotionally powerful choice. He brought in Deacon Frey, Glenn's son, as a vocalist and guitarist. And he invited Vince Gill, a legendary country artist, to join the band. Suddenly, the Eagles weren't just a legacy act. They were a legacy preservation project. They were a family passing down a musical inheritance. For the Eagles fans worldwide watching this unfold, there was something deeply moving about it. It's not just nostalgia, it's witnessing something that transcends mortality. It's seeing a son carry on his father's work. It's watching a dream that seemed broken, that seemed destroyed by ego and ambition and betrayal. The Eagles announced a 2025 residency at the Las Vegas Sphere, a state-of-the-art venue with technology that didn't exist when they were at their peak. In a way, that's the perfect metaphor for their legacy. The technology changes, the venues change, the people change, but the songs remain. They adapt, they evolve, they endure. The Eagles' story is the American dream and its shadow wrapped up in one package. 4 ambitious outsiders who chased the California dream and caught it, only to discover that massive success can hollow you out. But here's what matters. The songs endured. Through the breakup, through the bitterness, through time itself. The music proved larger than the egos that created it. Their legacy lives on through a new generation carrying the torch. And that, somehow, makes all the pain worth it. What part of the Eagles story surprised you the most? Don't forget to like and subscribe for more music documentaries.